Channel Sports Central will be over our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Michigan State Spartans, a team that was 2-5 overall in the 2020 season. Not quite as good of a season as many Michigan State fans would have hoped for, but this team does have a huge amount of potential going into the 2021 season, and why that is what we're going over here today. We're going to go and get started with Michigan State's final prediction. We'll be starting out here today looking at the season trends for this team for 2020. Once again, 2-5 was the overall record last season. 1-2 was your first 3 games. 1-3 was your record in the last 4 games. So this team just was very inconsistent last season. That was a big issue for this team. Obviously, there were a couple of good moments for this team. I mean, especially that win over Northwestern, 29-20. That was a huge win there. I mean, if you think about it, like Northwestern being the Big Ten West champions last season, that was a huge upset win for Michigan State, and that could have definitely flipped the momentum for this team, but they just could not do it. I mean, having an Ohio State game right after that Northwestern game is a pretty tough turnaround. But once again, for Michigan State, I mean, other than that Northwestern win, just not a lot of positives here. I mean, they lost to Iowa 7-49, got shut out to Indiana 24-0, lost to Ohio State by 40, and then lost to Penn State 24-39. So obviously, I mean, for Michigan State, this is a team that had a brand new head coach last season, Mel Tucker. It was his first season with Michigan State, and so I mean, this team is just in a rebuilding phase right now, and that's something that everyone needs to understand is, and I'm sure a lot of Michigan State fans understand, is just, I mean, it's a rebuilding phase. Mark D'Antonio was the head coach of this team for a long time, and having a change-up and having Mel Tucker now as the head coach of this team, I mean, it's a huge change. So for Michigan State especially, this is a team that is, even though they're in the rebuilding phase, there is still potential on this team. Just looking at the returning production, I mean, this team does look pretty good offensively. I mean, if you look at the quarterback position, that's definitely the biggest question mark I'd say for this team. If the quarterback position plays well next season, especially Peyton Thorne, which it looks like he plays well, I definitely think this team has got potential to be a pretty good team next season, especially looking at the rest of the offense. I mean, this team returns quite a bit. It's just the quarterback position that's a big question mark going into next season, which, I mean, if you look at the quarterbacks here, you got Rocky Lombardi, of course. He's transferring away, won't be with the team next season. Put up just over 1,000 yards last year, 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Did Lombardi. Also put up a 53% completion rate, which that is an absolutely horrendous completion rate. I mean, that's pretty terrible. So this could be actually a good change for this team, having Peyton Thorne under center next season, which if you look at Peyton Thorne last season, I mean, he didn't play a whole lot, but when he did, 580 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a 56% completion rate. So he does show potential. I think Peyton Thorne is Michigan State's guy, but he's got a lot of work to do if he's going to bring Michigan State to a good season. Connor Hayward is coming back, your top running back last season, put up just over 270 yards. So that's going to be a big return there. Watch out for him. Jalen Naylor is coming back. Jaden Reed is also coming back. So your top 2 receivers. Same thing with Ricky White. Your third wideout is also coming back for next season. So receiving core looks really good for this team. That's going to be huge for Peyton Thorne and this offense in general, having back all of the receiving core. And so, I mean, skill players wise, this team actually looks really good. I mean, there's not much to complain about at all offensively for this team. They lose 1 offensive lineman, but that's about it. So once again, it all weighs on heavily the quarterback position. If Peyton Thorne plays well, if he has a better completion rate and gets those stats up, I mean, this team definitely could be a good team next season. Defensively, they lose 2 defensive linemen, 1 linebacker, and 1 in the secondary. So there are 4 losses defensively. That does concern me a little bit, but not too much. But Michigan State, otherwise, this team does look pretty good in the returning production. It's just a matter of how well that they can play on what they got. Chances of a bowl season in 2021. That's going to be a big goal, I think, for Michigan State next year. Obviously, coming off of a 2-5 season, you're in a rebuilding phase. So for Michigan State, that's the first step, is getting to a bowl game and definitely contending and possibly even winning it. I think next season, Michigan State is going to be right on that gradient between 5 and 6 wins. This team is going to be mighty close. Every single game is going to matter for this team. You cannot take any bad losses because, I mean, it's going to be tough to get 6 wins on your schedule. Will there be improvement next season? I do think so for Michigan State. This is a team that, once again, was pretty terrible last season. And I think, I mean, going into next season, if they've got a more defined quarterback position, and if Peyton Thorne plays well, once again, it's going to heavily rely on him. And if he plays well, this team will as well. If he plays well, this team definitely is probably bowl bound, if you ask me. Looking at your schedule going into next season, of course, you got Northwestern to start off the year on the road. So you got a road conference game there. Of course, you got a win against them last season. It'll be interesting to see if they can get the win there again. Youngstown State, you got them then on the 11th. You got a road trip to Miami. Tough game there. on the 18th. That's going to be a brutal matchup against Miami. I could see Miami being a national contender next season. I mean, if there was a 12-team playoff next year, I could definitely see them being in it. They'll definitely be in the top 15, top 10 for a good chunk of next season. Nebraska, you got them at home on the 25th. Western Kentucky follows that game. You got Rutgers on the road, Indiana on the road, Michigan at home. Interesting matchup there at home. You got Purdue on the road, Maryland, and then Ohio State on the road, and then you got Penn State to finish out your season. So, interesting schedule here for Michigan State. I mean, your non-conference games, other than that Miami matchup, you should win both of them. But otherwise, yeah, of course, you got to play Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. And your crossover games into the West Division are Nebraska, as well as Purdue. And I think that's it. Actually, also, yeah, Northwestern. That's the third one. So Northwestern obviously could be a tougher matchup being on the road. But looking at September, Northwestern is going to be very close. I could see that game going right to the wire for sure. But I think Michigan State gets the win. I'm not expecting much out of Northwestern next season. It's going to be tough for Northwestern to make it to a bowl game. I mean, they're losing quite a bit going into next season. So that'll be a win for Michigan State there. Youngstown State's going to be an easy win. Don't really worry about that one. Miami on the road, that's going to be I don't know about a close one. I think Miami does get the win pretty easily in that matchup. Once again, I like Miami quite a bit next season. Derek King and all. That's going to be a tough team. Nebraska, that is a game that I definitely had a tough time picking there. It could easily go either way. Nebraska is just coming off of an Oklahoma matchup on the road before that game. And so I think Michigan State probably will be slightly favored, I'd say, in that matchup. Who knows? I mean, then again, Michigan State's coming off of a tough one against Miami too, so that kind of cancels out. But Nebraska game's going to be very close. I'm going to give the Huskers the win in the end, though. I mean, it's going to be, once again, very close, but I could easily see it going either way. So 2-2 is going to be a record heading into October. You got Western Kentucky, that's a win. Rutgers is also a win, but it's going to be kind of close. Indiana, that's a road game. Indiana next year is going to be pretty good. Michael Penix, I like them quite a bit. So I'm going to give Indiana the win. I think Indiana next year is definitely going to be the main competitor, I'd say, against Ohio State in the Big Ten East. So, yeah, watch out for them. That's going to be a tough one. Michigan, as much I want to give Michigan State the win there, it's going to be very close. But Michigan gets the win in the end. I think Michigan State does put up a good fight in that one, especially coming off of a bye week. But I got to give the Wolverines the win there on October 30th. So 4-4 is going to be a record heading into November. Not a terrible situation at all for this team. I mean, you just need 2 more wins. If you can get 2 wins in these last 4 matchups, that puts you into a bowl scenario, which is, once again, the main goal, I think, for Michigan State next season is to get to a bowl game, and I've got you doing that. I think Purdue is going to be a win. Don't really worry about that one. Purdue's going to be pretty terrible next year. Maryland, that could be an interesting one. That's going to be a tricky one there. I think Maryland next season is a tough team to predict. I mean, Talia Tagovailoa is going to be quite a quarterback for sure. I could see him being very good next season, and for this Michigan State team in general, I mean, Maryland next year is, I mean, once again, I mean, that could be a tougher matchup there. But with it being at home for Michigan State, I think that gives them an advantage. Michigan State gets the win in a close one over Maryland. So that puts you at 6-4 heading into your final 2 matchups. Both of those final games are going to be tough. I mean, Ohio State, I hate to say it, but Ohio State next year is going to be right back to being a national contender. So I give Ohio State the win there. Penn State also could be a close matchup, potential upset there for Michigan State. Who knows? It's usually an interesting matchup, but Penn State, I'm going to give them the win against Michigan State. So 6-6 is going to be a record prediction. That's actually a really good prediction for this team, especially with Peyton Thorne at quarterback. I think this team, once again, if he plays well, this team is going to play well as well, and I think this team definitely has got potential if he does do so. So 6-6 will be a record prediction for Michigan State, but I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below on this team. Very interesting team here with Michigan State going into next season. So anyway, that being said, that wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed the preview, slap a like on it, subscribe as well, as it does help out the channel. But once again, appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.